Hello everyone, this is Connor, Boats.sync with Iron City Games. As you know, that time I got reincarnated as a slime Volume 2 releases this week, tomorrow as of recording this. But, what about Volume 1, right? That set still exists. So I want to talk about some of the cards from that set today, which, obviously, old set. Probably a lot of you have started playing between the time that that came out in I guess it was a little over a year ago now, and October 2021, right? It's been over a year. The set is a bit hard to find. A lot of the cards have gotten expensive, so let's take a look at that. Before we get too far in, though, we did upload a set review of That Time I Got Reincarnated as Slime Volume 2 yesterday on our YouTube channel. You can check that out, see some of the cards from the new set, since I will be talking about the old cards in relation to these new cards. So go watch that, go check it out. There should be a link to it on the screen, and then you can come back and see what we're talking about here. So if you've watched that video, or if you've watched any deck profiles that people have been uploading on the set, or any other set reviews, you'll know that there are a number of decks that come out of Volume 2 that are pretty much standalone decks. They don't rely super hard on any of the Volume 1 cards. Volume 2 actually did a pretty good job of going out of its way to make sure that it didn't want to be played with many of the Volume 1 cards. You especially see this in like the yellow 3-2 Rimuru, you can't mill events or blue climaxes on it, stuff like that. So I want to be talking about what old cards should you be looking at to maybe play in decks like this. I'm not going to be talking about the actual old set 1 deck, since that deck is basically entirely set 1 cards with like 2 or 3 new cards. But I want to be talking about the new decks, what old cards they might be featuring. So this is the cards you should be playing from Volume 1 in your Volume 2 deck. Obviously, not all of these cards are going to go in every deck. Not all these cards are cards you should always be playing in the deck they go in. And there's probably some cards that I missed that aren't on this list, but it's cards you should at least be considering. So first off, from the trial deck, we have Rimuru Tempest. Obviously, this card's seen play as like a 1-2 of in the set 1 deck forever. It's on play, reveal top card of your deck. If it's a Demon Continent character, put it into your hand, choose a card in your hand, put it in waiting room. And on play, you can discard a Climax to salvage a Demon Continent character. So it gives you this double hand fix. The set 1 deck played gate triggers, so sometimes you might just have too many Climaxes in your hand, and this gave you a really good out to that. It also just let you, filter out dead cards early. The new decks aren't going to have as big of an issue outside of if you're playing sort of the blue Fruits of Wisdom package, you might be playing gate triggers. Otherwise, you're not going to have Climaxes stuck in your hand as often, but this being just a double hand fix is almost never, irrelevant, right? It's a good card just to hold in your hand for, oops, I didn't draw well off my clock to draw, let me hand fix some. So, a good card that you might be wanting to consider as like a one of in any builds you're looking at. Also from the trial deck, we have Summoning Tempest Wolves Gobta. This is a backup. Is when you play the backup, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's Demon Continent character, put it in your hand. Choose a card in your hand, put it into your waiting room. We got a backup in Volume 2 with this exact same text that is on a 1-1 2000 backup. So generally, I'm going to say that the 1-1 is the better option, but if you're playing a deck where your level 1 game is super small and isn't worth backupping over anyway, you can play this one to give you a little bit of extra defense at the point in the game where you would actually be playing your backup. So just depends on what you're playing, right? A lot of the 8 choice deck, if you don't think you're ever going to be able to counter your 5500 combo big enough to win on defense, you might as well just play this one, right? So something to at least consider, probably mostly based on your local meta. Moving into the booster pack, we have After the Battle Rimuru. This is a huge card. It is unfortunately one of the more expensive cards on this list, but it is a very important card to, at the very least, the 8 choice deck, since it does let you search your level 1 combo, and being a +1, having extra cards into your hand allows you to more easily meet the full board requirement that the choice combo has. In addition, with Fate getting Heaven's Feel Volume 2 and being a pretty relevant deck right now, the secondary effect that allows you to return one of your opponent's level 0s to hand allows you to beat the Shiro, level 0, that gives all their characters Clock Encore, which, if they play an entire field down at level 0, this allows you to actually punish them by bouncing their Clock Encore, reversing all their characters, and now they're a lot lower on hand, and they're going to have to be scrambling to get back into the game. So it does allow you to punish Fate if they play into it. But in general, being able to search your level 1 combo, it's relevant for the 8 choice deck. It's mostly relevant for the 8 standby deck, if you are actually playing the standby level 1 combo. And obviously even the blue deck that I showed some cards for is going to be playing a level 1 combo. So this card's never really bad in any of the builds. It's probably one of the more important set 1 cards. Moving on, we have Achieving Vindication Shion. This card, less important. It's a yellow early play if you have 2 or less Climax in Waiting Room. Gains 2,000 power during your turn if all your characters are Demon Continent, and on play, discard 1 heal to stock. This card is mostly like for the 8 choice deck if you don't want to be playing the Shion Ranga package from Volume 2, either because it's too many slots or too hard to set up. This gives you an alternative yellow early play to use. It also heals, so it just sort of fills that role of alternative early play if you don't want to play the new cards. It's probably also fine in like the new blue build. I don't think you'd be playing this in 8 standby very much. This is more just an alternative, right? If you don't like the new early plays. Next, this one, Demon Lord Ramorous. This one's super important, especially again in 8 choice. On play from hand, you can pay 1 if you do. Choose a cost 0 or lower Demon Continent character in your waiting room. Put it on any position of your stage, and it goes to memory at end of turn. So the 8 choice deck is playing level 1 combo. Is just on attack, salvage a character from your waiting room. It does require a full board though. This, pay 1, you get another character on your board. This again helps you fill that full board condition. However, with the choice combo being so weak on defense, it also allows you to play out your choice combo, get a bunch of free cards. Your opponent reverses your board. Now you can play the Ramorous to bring your combo back if you have the Climax again. You just pay 1, get your 1-0 back, and you get to combo again. So this lets you loop the combo really efficiently. It's just cheap advantage. Pay 1 to get a card is pretty free most of the time, especially when you're playing a choice deck that's, getting stock off of its choice triggers sometimes. So that's the biggest place you're going to be seeing this other than the old deck, the set 1 build. Makes 8 choice a lot smoother. You can also argue that it's worth playing an 8 standby to get out your level 1 combo more consistently, but I'm not sure that's really as relevant. You want to be winning lane in a lot of your board states for that deck. But still, overall, a really good card in the yellow builds. Next up, we have Instructor Hakuro. This is a 1/1. It's just an anti-change stock bomb. It is mostly relevant, again, if you're wanting to forego the new early play package for the 8 choice deck. This gives you an option to still be able to remove opposing early plays. Since the Shion from the new early play package comes out as like 14,500, that's usually what you're going to be using in that deck to get rid of your opponent's board. If you're not playing that, this gives you a way to do it instead. From the new set, there's also a blue 1/1 anti-change bomb, so in any build that's playing more blue, the new one is probably just as good or better. But in the 8 choice build, Hakuro gives you a way to do that if you don't want to play the new cards. We have Hero King Gazel. This is a 3/2 that I was pretty high on from Volume 1 when it originally came out. I think this card is still really good. It's not as important to builds now, especially since Rider from Heaven's Feel Volume 1 isn't really relevant anymore. But I do still think it's worth considering. The new choice level 3 finisher does have to make it to the end of its attack, meaning it is weak to counter step interaction. Gazel allows you to return your opponent's characters to hand. This turns off, counters like Goblin Slayer's bounce counter, since that requires 5 order trait characters on stage. It also allows you to return, like if they have a back row 2000 assist, say you're playing against Adventure Time, you can return their 2000 and Memory Kick assist to hand. Now they don't have Memory Kick on board to stop your Rimuru combo from going off. So in some matchups like that, it is going to make it a lot easier to resolve your Rimuru combos. So I do think it's worth looking at for that deck. It also allows you to control your triggers, which when you're attacking, 6 or 7 times in a turn, knowing what 3 of the triggers are going to be, or rather, okay, you're going to be milling, but you can get your first attack, second attack, and your Rimuru attack triggers controlled. right? And then you go pay 3, ditch 1, sack the Rimuru, then you start milling. Or, if you are playing Mask, if you're one of those crazy people that wants to play the anti-magic Mask in your choice finisher builds with like set 1 Shizu combo, Rimuru 3-2, you can play this to make sure you're not going to mill a Mask, right? You see, oh look, I have 3 characters or yellow climax in the top. I know that it's safe to attack with my Rimuru. Or maybe that it's not safe to attack with Rimuru, so you want to rearrange them so that you trigger the Mask, right? And then mill clean. So it has a couple options with that finisher that make it useful. And the soul manipulation doesn't always come up, but sometimes being able to pump extra soul gives you side attacks that are good for lethal. So I like this card a lot. Next we have Successor of Orc Disaster's Dying Wishes, Geld. This is a backup that again saw some play with the set 1 build. It's when you play the backup, you can pay 1 to return a copy of himself from your waiting room to your hand. Because of the order that these happen in, you can just actually return the same copy that you used the backup on, since you've discarded it for the backup cost. So this is played as a way to, if you have early plays, win multiple lanes without having to hold multiple counters in hand. You're just paying a little bit of extra stock. So you could counter 1 lane, pay 1, return him back to hand, and then counter for a second lane. That still applies moving into set 2. Not all of the early players are going to want this. Obviously, Shion, you can't even play backups during her battle. But if you're playing the standby deck, it gives you a counter that you can loop pretty easily. Or if you're playing the blue deck, right, and you're playing maybe the new Shizu early play that's check top X on play, that card would appreciate having a counter. Things like that. So it's worth considering if you want to be winning board at level 2 and you're not playing something that stops your backups, right? Moving into red, we have Child on the inside, Milim. This is the stock swap. On play, pay 3, put all your opponent's stock into the waiting room, put the same number from top of deck into stock. This is better in some builds than others. Obviously, the 8 standby build does mostly already deal with compression pretty well through the 3-5 event, since if they have a lot of climaxes in deck, you're going to be dealing a ton of damage off of it. But the other builds, this does give you a way, if your opponent's hyper compressed through stock, has a small deck with 3 climaxes and a 7-card deck or something, you can just pretty much completely mess them up and then attack into their decompressed deck to win the game. Funny thing you can do with the 8 standby build is if you play the 3-5 event and hit a bunch of climaxes but then don't clock any of them, you've effectively compressed your opponent and then you can stock swap them. Which is kind of neat, I guess, but it takes a lot of resources, so I'm not sure how good that is in the long run. But pretty good for especially the blue build. The new blue finisher is deal 4, so you want your opponent to be pretty decompressed if you're trying to go for 4. That finisher also doesn't cost stock to use its finisher effect, so that kind of works really well with the pay 3. So something to consider there for sure. We have a Blow from Above Rimuru. This is a clock costed plus, similar to After the Battle. First effect is on play, put 2 cards from the top of your deck into your waiting room. If there's a climax, choose 1 character in your opponent's center stage, it gets -1000. The -1000 is very occasionally relevant if you're wanting to hit things like Wildberry Princess or the new Shizu double rare from Volume 2. However, we're mostly looking at the put 2 cards from top of your deck into your waiting room. This gives you some early game mill. Also, when this card becomes reversed, pay 1, put this into clock, look at top 3, choose a character, put it in your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. This is up to 3 more cards going into your waiting room. Really, the stock you pay out into. But this lets you get standby targets into the waiting room early. It is a plus, right? It's when he dies, you're getting a card back to your hand. So you're getting cards, you're getting mill on your first deck, which is especially important in standby, because you want to get your standby targets into your waiting room in time for your level 1 combo. It also helps you dig for your level 1 combo, right? The check top 3, if you find your level 1 combo there, you can add it to hand. So it helps you set up pretty well in the standby deck. There's an argument that this is better than the After the Battle for that deck specifically. The other decks do also want some waiting room, but I don't know that it's so much that this card would be better than After the Battle. But for standby, I think this card is definitely worth looking at. Next we have Glare Rimuru. This is the anti-change backup. It's when you back up, put 2 cards from your hand into your waiting room, choose one of your opponent's character with level higher than your opponent's level, put it into his or her waiting room. It's a 2500 backup. This didn't see a whole lot of play in set 1. probably still won't see a whole lot of play in set 2, but it is the only anti-change backup that Slime has access to. So if you want to play one, this is the one. We have For Everyone's Sake Shuna. This is a 3-2 assist. This is again for the standby deck. It's 2,000 power to your characters in front of this. So when you're playing the standby deck, this is what you are going to be standbying out at level 2 a lot of the time to make your board a lot bigger. Other effects are on play, return a Demon Continent character from your waiting room to your hand, and rest, look at top 2, put them back in any order. Those effects aren't as relevant in the current standby deck. Previously, in the set 1 build, they could be used to toolbox some level 3s or guarantee the on-play burn effect of the Millum 3-2. They're not really doing as much in the standby deck out of set 2, but being a 2k assist is still enough to warrant playing it. And if you play it from hand, cantripping into a selective character is good enough. It's pretty good. We have Swordsmith Kurobe. On play, look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, put them on top in any order, and when a climax is placed, return this to hand, give a character +1 soul. This is very similar to the Rimuru rare from Volume 2. That one, when it returns to hand, gives 2,000 power. This gives a soul. Generally, I think people prefer the soul in standby builds unless they're getting cross-turn power, and we talked about this a little bit in our set review. Since standby itself does not give global soul, getting the additional soul helps you push damage at level 1. Otherwise, this fills pretty much the same role as that new Rimuru. We have Black Lightning Rimuru. This is a 1-1 at 7,500 on a full board and has character encore. This is for if you do not like the encore condition on the new 1-1 7,500 Rimuru. Notably, it is a little harder to keep this at 75 since it needs a full board instead of just 2 or more other characters, but I know some people really don't like that new encore condition. Head of the Monsters Rimuru is another one of the expensive ones from set 1. So unfortunately it does make the list though, because it's a pretty good card. First effect doesn't really matter a whole lot. It's a 2,500 if you have 2 or more other Demon Continent characters. When it's put into waiting room from stage, discard a card, look it up to 4, choose a level 1 or higher card, reveal it to your opponent, put it in your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. Again, this is good for early mill, so this is good in the standby deck. However, there's also the 3-5 event that's seeing play now. This can find the 3-5 event. Since nothing else really searches it other than the Millum Brainstorm, you can use this to get it into your hand, hold on to it. Even if you play this at some point later in the game, attack with it, and then stand by over it, that still triggers the effect and can help you dig for the event. Also in the new blue build, you have the event Fruits of Wisdom, similar to Anti-Magic Mask. Being able to grab your 1-1 event also just increases consistency there. So overall, Rimuru, pretty good card. I don't think it's really necessary in a choice at all, but in the other builds, it is a pretty solid role player. Request at the Kingdom of Filtwood Shizu. Beginning of your opponent's attack phase, pay 1, move this to an open position of your backstage, and act, pay 1, put this into waiting room, look up to 4 cards from the top of your deck, choose a Demon Continent character, reveal it, put it in your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. Again, this is more mill. This is a turn 1 play that gives you a plus. You can attack with it, and then pay 1, move it to backstage, so that your opponent can't reverse it, then you get another attack with it later. Unfortunately, you can't turn 1, play it, move it to back row, and also be able to sack it. You probably won't have enough stock for that. But it's still 2 pretty solid effects. It's a turn 1 play, or it's a play later in the game where you can just pay 1, sack it, get some mill, or get some hand fix. It's not a card that I'm super fond of, but it does give you some decent effects to look at. We have Power to Protect Comrades Rimuru. This is a clean cut effect. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, choose one of your other Demon Continent characters, rest it, move it to an open position of your backstage. We got another one of these in Volume 2 that is also blue, also a 0/0, also a 2k. The Volume 2 one on play gains a level in 1,500 power, so it is bigger. It can reverse more things. It is generally going to be the better option. However, this one is an anti-runner. The character facing it cannot move. This is really good if you're playing against a lot of decks that want to field turn 1 runners. So Kaguya-sama has their K0. Even decks like 7 Deadly Sins has the Guild Thunder Chaser, so you can prevent it from moving in front of something else, which is really good with clean cuts. Chasers kind of shut off clean cuts pretty hard, because you have to play 2 characters to make the clean cut useful, and they can always just chase in front of the other character. So as long as your other character is something that can pump power into Rimuru, in order to reverse the Gale Thunder, that's really good. This card being only 2k does really want to be played alongside Power Pumps to get power, so that it can reverse things. The other notable card that it beats is Data Live's Yoshino 1/1. Data Live was not out when Slime Vol.1 came out, so this card really wasn't even a consideration at all most of the time. But with Yoshino 1/1 running rampant in Data Live builds, it gives them a good option to control the board, save any large like 2/2s that you might actually be able to scale over by moving them to a different lane. Even if you're not able to reverse the Yoshino with Rimuru, say you play the new Shion early play, and you have the 3/2 14/5, and you're going to be able to beat their 2/2. They can't just field swap now. You can just play the Rimuru in front of the Yoshino, it stops their field swap, you get to beat their lane, and even if you crash into the Yoshino, that's a lot better than losing your early play to their anti-change, right? And if you have a way to pump power into the Rimuru, you can actually probably beat over their Yoshino anyway, so pretty good stuff. We have Last Journey Shizu. This is a climax swapper. On play from hand, pay 1, put a climax from your hand into your waiting room. Choose a climax in your waiting room, return it to your hand. These are just generically good effects. Not all of the new builds play gate triggers, so sometimes it's a little harder to get the specific climax you want into hand. Especially because we also aren't playing a whole lot of cantripping level 3s in most of the new builds. It's usually healers. So this does let you just more consistently get the climaxes you want when you want them. The second effect also helps you keep clean stock, or trigger climaxes when you want to in things like the standby build. So overall good card if you want a climax swapper. Creating Potions Rimuru. This card saw a lot of play in the Volume 1 build. It's not as important in the Volume 2 build, but it gives you a lot of options. It's rest it to put a marker under it, rest it, put the marker into stock, so every other turn you can make a stock. Or you can pay 2, rest it to heal. So it's just a card that can sit in back row and give you good resources, if you have room for it in back row, at least. There are a lot of new good back row cards, but this might still fit into like the blue build or something. And last we have Power of a Hero Shizu. This is a 2000 power assist to level 3 characters, and rest, draw 1, discard 1. Again, there are a lot of new assists. The new blue deck has the 1500 assist if Fruits of Wisdom is in your memory. The yellow deck has the 1/1 Hakuro level assist that's also your marker engine. So this isn't always going to fit into decks, but again, if you're playing more of a good stuff style deck and you don't want to be running like the Fruits of Wisdom stuff as heavily, Power of a Hero Shizu is just a good assist to have around. It makes your early plays really big, and it gives you some hand filtering later in the game. So thanks for watching. Hopefully some of these options will give you some help with building your decks out of Volume 2, especially if you picked up a playset recently and you're looking through all the Volume 2 cards, maybe looking to fill a couple holes in your deck that you don't have cards to exactly do the thing you want to do. So yep, thank you for watching. You can find me at BoatsDon'tSink on Twitter. You can check out Iron City Games at Iron City Games 1 on Twitter, and Iron City Games on Facebook. And you can find us at ironcitygames.tcgplayerpro.com to order any cards you need. You can also use my discount code ICGConnor, that's CONNOR, no spaces, ICGConnor. You can use that to get a discount on our TCG Player site. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.